Hi guys, Action 007 Cinema here. Warning, spoilers ahead. Today, I will recap a thriller movie released in 1979 called Escape from Alcatraz. This movie is based on a true story on the prison island of Alcatraz. This movie tells about a very intelligent prisoner who wants to escape from prison island Alcatraz, a prison with the tightest security. So, how will he make his attempts? Will he be able to run away? Let's find out together. A ship crossing the Bay of San Francisco carrying a convict named Frank Morris to Alcatraz. Frank Morris, called Frank, is a prisoner who has been in and out of prison many times. This time Frank will be detained in Alcatraz, which is known for its stringent level of security. Arriving at the Alcatraz, the guards take Frank to a baggage check. The guards check Frank's body from head to toe. All of Frank's belongings, including clothes, are being left behind, and the prisoners go to jail with nothing. This is done to ensure that Frank doesn't smuggle any dangerous goods. After that, Frank is escorted to his cell. The next day, the guards wake all the inmates up for breakfast. While having breakfast, from a distance, Frank sees a fat convict named Wolf. Wolf tries to tease Frank, but Frank keeps quiet and continues to eat his breakfast. Trying to ignore Wolf, Frank becomes friends with the person sitting in front of him named Litmus. After eating, all prisoners return to their cells. Not long after returning, the warden tells Frank to meet him. In his office, the warden explains every rule in prison, including all the rights and obligations of the prisoners. The warden tells Frank that Alcatraz is a prison for troubled inmates. The warden says that no one has ever escaped from this prison and will never be able to escape. Even if they manage to get out, the inmates will be found dead because the prison is surrounded by the ocean. Frank, who is listening, didn't seem interested in their conversation. Frank is more interested in the warden's nail clippers. After speaking, the warden tells Frank to return to his cell. While in the cell, Frank cuts his nails using the warden's nail clippers that he has stolen. After cutting his nails, he tries to hide the clippers in his Bible. In the afternoon, the guards take the inmates to the bath. At that time, Wolf tries to tease Frank again by approaching him. At first, Frank tries to ignore Wolf, but he is still trying to tease Frank. Frank gets annoyed and he beats Wolf up. After that, Frank continues his daily life as usual. Frank is assigned to help with the library, where he makes an acquaintance of one of the librarians named English. While in the field, Frank becomes acquainted with one of the painters named Doc. Doc is one of the convicts sentenced to life. That time, Doc tries to remind Frank about Wolf. Doc tells Frank to be careful because Wolf must be planning something to get back at Frank. In the painting that Doc is making, one flower is depicted. Doc says that the flower symbolizes him who cannot be extinguished even if he is imprisoned. On the next day, while on the field, Doc's words come true. Wolf tries to stab Frank, but Doc helps Frank avoid being stabbed by the knife. Frank then gets into a fight with Wolf, which makes the guards shoot warning shots to stop them. As a result of this fight, Wolf and Frank are put in solitary confinement. Frank tries to defend himself, claiming his innocence. But the guard on duty would not listen. After exiting the solitary confinement, Frank finds that someone was occupying the cell next to him. Frank meets the convict next door, named Charlie Butts. One day, the warden who is going around accidentally drops his item into Doc's cell. He orders one of the guards to open Doc's cell. When entering the cell, the warden sees the painting in Doc's cell. Inadvertently, the warden sees one of his portrait paintings which is smiling. After seeing the painting, the warden orders one of the guards to confiscate all the paintings in Doc's cell. Not only that, but the warden also orders his subordinates to revoke Doc's right to paint. When all his belongings are taken, Doc tries to explain that the paintings are everything to Doc. However, the guards don't seem to care and continue to take all of Doc's belongings. That afternoon, while working in the prison workshop, Doc puts something in Frank's shirt. After that, Doc borrows an axe with the excuse of wanting to chop some wood. But instead of chopping wood, Doc intentionally cuts his finger in front of the guards with the axe. Everyone there is shocked by Doc's action. After that, the guards immediately put Doc into solitary confinement without providing any treatment. Frank feels angry and he tries to follow Doc. But the officers stop him and tell everyone to get back to work. Instead of going back to work, Frank collects all of Doc's fingers and gives them to the officer. At first, Frank can't understand why Doc did that. Frank finds one flower that Doc has put in Frank's shirt. The flower is the same flower in Doc's painting. English comes and tells Frank that he knows why Doc did that. English says that Doc did this because his painting rights have been revoked by the warden. English also says that Doc's property has been taken for no apparent reason. Other times, families of the prisoners are given time to visit. Butts' relatives tell him that his mother is sick and dying. This news makes Butts wants to escape. Frank, who is thinking, looks at the wall around the event. At that time, Frank tries to pry the wall apart and the wall gets ripped off, noticing the weak spot in the cell. One day, Frank meets his two friends, John and Clarence. They have just been transferred to Alcatraz because they tried to escape. Clarence asks the truth about the Alcatraz prison that no one has escaped from. At night, Frank tries to scrape the wall around the air vent slightly. At that time, Frank knows that the wall around the air vent is brittle and can be scraped off. Frank uses the nail clippers he has stolen to scrape it. The next day, Butts tells Frank that he will come if Frank wants to escape. Frank finally brings Butts to meet his two friends. Frank tells his friends that he seemed to have found a way out. Frank tells them the required items needed to escape. After listening to Frank's explanation, his friends agreed to divide the tasks and carry out the plan. In the evening, Frank divides the work with Butts. Frank tells Butts to be on guard while he tries to scrape the wall off with a nail clipper. The next day, the four meet again to discuss the progress of the plan. Frank says that it will take a long time to scrape off the wall using a nail clipper. So Frank thinks of using a spoon instead. Frank tries to get the spoon in the cafeteria with John's help. Frank soils the spoon he is using and asks the guard to replace it with a new one. John tries to distract the guards, and Frank successfully takes 2 spoons from there. That night, using the tools he has gathered, Frank tries to scrape the walls again. After a while, Frank finally manages to break the air vent in his cell. After Frank manages to erode the wall, his friends start to break into the air vents in their cells. Frank then attempts to make a ventilation cover. He makes a ventilation cover using the cardboard he has collected so far. In addition, they also make a head-shaped door that they will use to trick the officers when the day of the escape arrives. After finishing his task, he asks his friends whether they have done their job and escaped. John and Clarence have managed to finish what is needed, but Butts hasn't done it yet. They end up still waiting until Butts is ready. The appointed night finally comes. They agree to meet above the ventilation they have scraped before. But Butts is hindered again. In front of Butts' cell, an officer on guard monitors him closely. Frank initially waits for Butts, but Butts never comes. Reluctantly, Frank, John, and Clarence continue their escape without Butts. The 3 of them climb up the ventilation chamber until they reach the prison's roof. They continue to sneak up to the edge of the prison. They go down the wall using pipes and they run until they reach the sea. Without waiting any longer, they immediately put on the life jackets they made from plastic raincoats. They hurriedly leave the island of Alcatraz and disappear. The next day, while waking up the inmates, it can be seen that Butts angrily stares at the officers. The movie ends when the officer who wakes the inmates up finds that Frank's room is empty. They only find a doll head that Frank has put. The alarm is sounded and the officers immediately scour the ocean looking for the 3 escaping inmates. However, despite using a patrol boat, Frank, John, and Clarence were never found up to this day. Don't give up. They say that something is impossible. But if we put our mind and hard work together, everything is possible. Isn't it right? What would you do if you were in Frank's position? Will you do the same? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you for watching, and as always, see you next time.